We good? Okay. At this point, I'd like to call to order the monthly meeting of the Hannaford Regional Technical School District for Wednesday, December 12th, 2018. First item of business is to introduce board members and administration at the table. Suzanne, would you like to lead off?
Suzanne Board Rep, can you introduce people?
Lynn Schmidt, Adult and Cooperative Education.
Nick Colston, ACSD delegate.
Christina Macklin, Addison Northwest District.
Gibson Smith, Business Manager.
Linda Barrett, Clerk.
Dana Peterson, Interim Director and Superintendent.
Jason LaRock, Workforce Investment Board.
Lorraine Morris, representing Addison Central School District.
Missy Beckwith, Workforce Investment Board.
Mark Parent, Workforce Investment Board.
Mike McGrath, Addison Northwest.
Kim Farnham, Community at Large member from the Abraham Union District.
Kelly Mills, Sustainable Agriculture Instructor, Assistant Director.
Okay. Next item of business is to approve our agenda. You should have a copy of the draft agenda in front of you. I'd like to have a brief executive session after the review of the budget and before the superintendent's contract. I don't expect it to be more than 5 minutes of our time. You'll see that we have a split action agenda. Want to make sure everyone's okay with that. Another option would be to rearrange the informational agenda and do that first. The thought was that we would do the reorganization. I'd then turn over the meeting to the new chair to finish it out, but that way they're not having to run a meeting they didn't organize. So is everyone okay with the agenda as revised with the executive session and leaving it as a split action agenda?
I'm confused. What are you asking?
I'm asking, if someone wants to consolidate and move informational up so that we're not doing a split action agenda, that's an option. I'm not suggesting that at this point. I'm just suggesting that we put in the executive session. So if I can get a motion.
Moved.
Okay, it's moved. Is there a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as revised. All those in favor, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion is carried. We now have an approved agenda. Visitor comments. We have some visitors, staff and faculty in attendance. Do you have anything you want to bring forth at this point? Okay. Correspondence. I have some correspondence that I received that I will share with the board in executive session. I brought copies to do that. Dana, do you have any additional correspondence?
No other correspondence other than the letter for the action agenda.
Okay. Consent agenda. In your packet, you should find the meeting minutes for November 14th, 2018, and Missy, do you have the numbers for the accounts payable?
I do.
And would you like to share those with us?
Yep. Okay, so bear with me. We have building and equipment reserve, no expenditures this month. From the general fund, a total of $92,134.78. The revolving fund, $2,713.14. No expenditures from the McClure grant. The Makery grant, $60.94. Payroll for 11/20/2018, $86,207.59. And payroll for December 7th, 2018, $81,938.75.
Okay. Hearing those numbers and having reviewed the meeting minutes for November 14th, does anyone want to remove any of those items for further consideration? Going, gone. Okay, consent agenda's passed. Action agenda, policy 2.4, financial planning and budgeting. I'm gonna turn it over to Dana. This is a monitoring report for 2.4. You should have a copy of it in your informational packet. I'm gonna turn it over to Dana to touch on the highlights.
To begin, there are no conditions at this point in time that we've identified that would place the board at any risk financially. In terms of the credible projections for revenues, we exercise internal controls, and whenever there are receipts, cash receipts, they're counted by two parties to verify the amount and the account to be deposited, in which to be deposited. For operational costs and capital expenditures, they're separated in two different ways. In the district's chart of accounts, as well as different checking and banking institutions. We have a purchase order and purchase requisition system in place, and cash flow is monitored on a regular basis to ensure that sufficient funds are available, and they're reconciled monthly. And with respect to number 3, there are no programs or expenditures that have been added in the current year's budget that have not been approved by the Board of Directors.
Good. Any questions for Dana in regards to 2.4? All right. Thank you. Take a motion to approve as submitted.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Moved and seconded to approve policy, the monitoring report for policy 2.4, financial planning and budgeting. All those in favor, or any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. Okay, motion has carried. Thank you very much. Next will be the review of the draft budget with the 6th semester averages. We saw a draft budget on the expenditure side last month.
I'm going to do an update on that this month.
And it was requested to get the 6th semester averages.
Right,
last
and I
month.
have that in in my board report, so I'll refer to the board report and ask you to, if you'd like, you to take a copy of the updated expense side report.
And if you would pass that down to Addison, I think everyone else has signed that.
So in my superintendent's report, I gave some initial preliminary figures based on where we were at the end of last week, and those numbers have been adjusted slightly, and then I'll talk a little bit about the 6th semester averages as a follow-up. So in my board report, I said that our budget was at approximately $3,527,474. That has been adjusted upwards by about 20,000 to the spreadsheet that was just handed out and circulated, $3,546,423. That new change, as you can see in the change in dollars, $77,899, almost $78,000. Those included the items that I had left out of last month's, plus some reviewing of the budget. Our operating budget brought that in line with what's happening this year and carried those savings that we've realized, or we are expecting to realize in this year's operating budget over. And Jason asked me to give a prediction about where my number would be. I think I said 2.5. I think right now we're at 2.25, so not bad for a off-the-cuff response. We've broken it down into categories that you can see there. Most of the changes up in the bolded area, with most of those areas that may have changed and reflected that change. The others below, starting with regular programs and through the rest of the budget, have remained pretty much the same. So the calculations that you have in the budget development in terms of FY19 estimated tuition per FTE, that will need to be adjusted upwards slightly. I have not run the calculations. I can't imagine that it would be more than 0.25% on those, but that's just a speculation at this point in time. So we have pretty good numbers in terms of where that would be. The total HCC tuition for next year, we're expecting to be about $22,500. That is a result of the change in the 6th semester FTE, which I will go into in just a minute. But the decline of 3 to 4 FTEs over that 6th semester average is what substantially accounts for that change. In other words, you're taking the approximate cost of 4 FTEs, $80,000, and distributing that among the remaining FTEs that we have.
Is that the last of the large semesters that are in the, we had a bubble there?
Yes, the bubble just went off.
So that's the last piece?
Yeah, we lost a huge, a real big one semester average of 152, I believe. And so that was a substantial contributor to the change in the 6th semester average. And we can look at that, Jason. Let me pause for a minute, ask if there are any questions regarding the preliminary budget figures that I've presented, either in the report that you have or on the spreadsheet that we handed out. And Gibson did point out to me that for clarification purposes, the total projected revenues are not $324,000. Those are revenues from the state that did not get calculated into the tuition from our sending schools or the amount to be raised by taxes on an at-large basis, countywide basis. So the full amount would be the full amount of the budget. He indicated to me that it wasn't quite clear that we would not have a balanced budget. So I rely on Gibson to keep me honest in my representation of the facts. Any questions at this moment about either the items in the board report under the budget development or the spreadsheet you have in front of you? Questions, comments? If you have one, certainly I will be happy to field it. If you turn your page in your board report, what I have done there is provided a pictorial representation of the 6th semester average with all of the numbers in a spreadsheet down the left-hand side of that bar graph. And under figure 1, I have the 6th semester averages for the last 4 budget cycles. And so, as I was referencing with Jason, if you look at fall 2015, we had 152 FTEs that particular semester, and that has fallen off. We're looking at the year in question, the budgeting for the 2020 year, which actually reflects the fall semester of 2018 in dark blue, royal blue. And that shows that we have 133.66 coming or in presently, but that is replacing a 152. The difference there is approximately 18 FTEs, and when you divide that over 6 semesters, you get 3, and that's the decline from last year. The good news is, I don't know if anybody was scrutinizing the chart too much, but both the semester 1 and semester 2 averages have been on an uptick. If you look at the chart, the line chart in the middle of your page. So we're very pleased that we took in 114 last spring, almost 115 to make up for 111 previously, and the 133 that made up for numbers that were at 120, for example. So, and almost at the fall of 2016. So we're relatively pleased with those numbers in the environment of smaller enrollments from our sending school partners.
Quick question.
Yes.
Historically, I've been told that spring semesters tend to fall off from fall semesters for one
Yes.
reason or another. With the scheduling change at ACSD, do you think that'll still be the case, or do you think that that'll be? I look at last year, and it was a relatively small drop off compared to when you look at semester.
Right.
So if you look at 10 and 11
Right.
versus 8 and 9,
Yep.
or 6 and 7, those are much more dramatic drop offs than we
Right.
saw last year. Is that a trend we should expect to continue to see, those leveling off, or?
With some preliminary calculations, which are very preliminary, so I don't want to mention the number, it would be similar to last year. It would be a much more gradual drop-off.
Okay.
So not as significant as the two that you just referenced.
Okay.
We're talking about a significant drop of almost 20% on those other ones. We're looking at something that's a much smaller factor. It would be less than 10%, maybe even 5%. So,
Okay.
but they're too preliminary for me to be able to
Nope.
tell that. But we were very encouraged when we looked at some of those preliminary numbers. Just to make a comment, statewide, that is a phenomenon that other technical centers do experience. Maybe not to the extent that Jason has referenced in terms of past semesters, but there is, for whatever reason, a decline from the fall to the spring. That is an overall trend.
Do you know, does the state have any idea as to why that happens?
I don't know if the state has any ideas, but the directors group has talked about that. It's semesterized classes, and sometimes people realize that they need something out, or they think they need something out there, homeschool, and then they withdraw from a semester class here at the Career Center to do that. Sometimes in the second semester, those who might be seniors and graduating get notified that they are not on track to complete their graduation requirements, and therefore need to drop a Career Center class. Those are issues that we're trying to work out statewide and with our partners to minimize that impact. But I would say that that's probably the trend that most career centers find. Those are the two factors that I have heard most frequently expressed.
So, off topic slightly, I have a question for our ACSD members. It's my understanding that in the new schedule, that there's a minimum number of credits a student needs to take to be considered enrolled. So if you need one class to graduate, you need to take a full course load to be considered enrolled at the high school. Are we, if that's truly the case, are we expecting to see an increase of those students that need one credit or one class to graduate? I'll take advantage of the Career Center because I have to be here anyway. Are you seeing any of that?
That is too early to tell. I can't say specifically in terms of individual cases. We are working very closely with our partners, as I've mentioned in my multiple board reports. We have our fourth meeting coming up this Friday, and but we're talking about the ways to maximize opportunities for students. So I think that with counseling and recommendations, students are generally favorable to coming here to pick up credits to be able to meet graduation requirements. But I can't say specifically in terms of the analysis, but I would say that it would be a favorable situation for us if they have the opportunities to exercise choice in their credit-bearing classes.
But that comes
So-
secondhand to me, so that's why I was kind
I
of,
mean, you asked about credits. I mean, to be enrolled, you need to have at least a class, but credits, as far as I know, where they really come into play is if you're playing sports, you have to at least be a half-time student.
I guess it got the impression that there was a change in the minimum number of classes that a student needed to take to be considered enrolled in the high school.
You mean per the IBM curriculum?
Yeah, I didn't, and I think I got the impression it was an IB situation.
Yeah.
So
And that hasn't been fully implemented
No.
with their juniors and seniors, so that may be a consideration. We haven't had too many conversations about that yet.
Any,
That's my presentation with respect to the budget and with respect to the six-semester average. If you have any questions about the six-semester average, I'm happy to try to answer those at this point.
you're going to provide the expanded
For the next
budget
month,
for
yeah.
next month?
Yep.
I like this format.
Excuse me?
I like this format. Makes it
Thank you.
really,
Well, we were trying to
I'm
put
not-
it on one page so that you would have the summary of all of the areas.
I remember hunting through the budget to find all the insurance items. So this makes-
We put them in one place.
I like it.
Takes a little work, but we thought that it would be user-friendly. Thank you.
Any questions for Dana?
Dana, do you see any flexibility in this 3.5 million? Because it still results in a 2.5% increase in the reduction in the 6 months. We're looking at a 4 or 5% increase.
I'm sorry?
We'll be looking at a 4 or 5% increase. There's 2% on the dollars, and there's a reduction of 3 on the sixth semester average.
Yeah, so we'd be looking at, we'll be looking at a sizable per pupil spending percentage increase.
Which is the 4.7 on the first page.
Right, what I gave you was, it doesn't include all of this. It is short by about 20,000, as I said, and that would result, let me see if I can do the calculation really quickly in my head. 20,000 would be so 500, be about 200 and, nope, it would be about $187 on the per pupil cost going up. How close? Divide 500 by 3 and tell me what that is. But
166.
okay, so I was, not 180, 167. wasn't it? So on the per pupil spending. But that's, so in other words, the total tuition would go up by $167. So it would be, like I said, 22,630, something like that,
Yeah,
which would increase
yeah.
the
It'll end up about 5%.
5%, yep.
Yeah.
And that's what I was kind of projecting on.
And you think that's a hard, fairly
So there are a couple of caveats in there. One of them is we have budgeted $70,000 in our operating budget to cover HRA expenses.
One of the, correct me if I'm wrong on this, last year we funded it with rollover money.
Correct.
So we're funding it out of the general fund. We set up that account as an action item in our annual meeting, or set up that fund, and then we funded that fund as a next order of business at our annual meeting, and I believe we put $50,000.
We did put 50, yeah.
And so there, and I'm to believe that we spent that and some last year.
We haven't gotten the figures on that, we're still working for that,
Okay.
but my best guess was, the last time that I looked, it was about 64, and it's not all in. So Gibson and I talked, and I thought that the prudent thing to do at this point in time, and it may come back more favorable, but I figured that as a first pass, that I would put 70,000, that we would put 70,000 in to cover those obligations.
So where I'm going with this is, and Gibson, correct me if I'm wrong, that $50,000 that we took from 16, 17, or from 17, 18, 16, 17,
right.
and put it into this, no, we took
Reserve
it,
fund, yeah.
yeah, we put it into the reserve fund. That $50,000 isn't reflected in the total 18, 19 budget, correct?
It is not.
So this is misleading and I really don't want to use that term, but it's misleading on two fronts, because not only did we put that $50,000 rollover to fund that account, and it doesn't show up in the 18-19 adopted budget. We also rolled over money from the taxpayer to decrease this as well. Is that in here or no? Or am I looking at this from the wrong direction? Because I thought we rolled over 40,000. We took the surplus and
Yes.
split it into three pots.
40,000.
That was returned to the taxpayer.
Yeah, I guess that was income, so it wouldn't have showed up.
It wouldn't show up, right.
It wouldn't show up on the.
Right.
But
But you're right, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
The 50,000,
50,000 would be-
there is $50,000 more than, if you were to take the adopted budget for 18, 19 and add 50,000 to
Yeah.
it, that's a better comparison.
Yeah.
But that money was taxpayer money that we actually used to fund the reserve.
Yeah.
Our fund reserves, we haven't gotten the auditor's report back yet. We're hoping to get that before our next board meeting. We may not have a presentation from the auditors until February. But the preliminary indication is that our rollover in terms of taxpayer dollars is more along the lines of 24,000 rather than the 117,000 from the 16-17 school year. So we don't have the amount to fund either a taxpayer, offset for 40,000. We're down by that, and we don't have the money to fund the HRA to the level that we projected would be needed. So that's why it's being built into the budget. When you see the revenue reports from next month, they're included in my report, or at least the revenue numbers are included in the 324,000. In return to the taxpayers would only be a maximum of 24,000, not 40,000. So if you take that out, then the revenues that we're getting from other sources is only 300,000.
Yeah.
Dan?
Yes.
At last meeting, we talked about, Jake did a wonderful presentation on IB.
Yep.
And we talked about costs associated with IB. Are they reflected?
Yes, they are,
in here?
both in professional development and other lines, yes.
Okay.
And we have, I believe, sufficient funds to cover both our PD as well as any registration costs, for application costs.
any additional questions for Dana?
How are we funding that fund this year?
It's coming out of the general fund budget. So let's see,
I
that
thought it
was,
wasn't reflected in there.
It's in yours.
You said in the operating budget?
It would be under health insurance?
yeah, that's where I would presume that.
Would it be under health insurance?
It would be, Gibson and I have decided to put it under a board obligation rather than under health insurance, so that we can disambiguate. So there will be a line, when you see the budget next month, you'll see a line under Board of Ed, and in there we will have a line that says HRA obligations.
So is that
So-
Well, I thought we had $70,000 as a school board to operate.
You do.
That's not, that's not what that's for?
That's not what that's for.
Huh.
Why have we decided to do that when it's direct costs associated? with
Because we have a health insurance line that goes from our payroll system. And so we get the dollars directly out of that, so we can have a comparison. We just keep it as a different line in the budget because that money is coming out separately. It's not touching a payroll line or a benefits line, is that correct, Gibson? That we're putting the $70,000 in a separate line so that it's not going to be reflected in health insurance as our premiums that we pay, because those are set up separately in the Tyler system, correct? Because there's a co-pay by the board, there's a portion paid by the board and a portion paid by the employees. So
So it is broken out. So it may be not clear, without, I mean, I think it does make sense to put the figure in one place.
we could put it under general instruction as well and just put a line for health insurance or HRA funding or something like that, general instruction. We chose to put it into Board of Ed because we felt that was a Board of Ed obligation. So we can move that.
Well, I would like to see it under health insurance as a taxpayer,
But a separate line for-
As a
okay.
taxpayer, I'm gonna give, as a taxpayer, I wanna see this. And when I see that under Board of Ed, we have $75,000, that kinda makes me wonder, what are those guys doing?
Okay.
So when I show up when I show up next year to question the budget,
We'll have the next meeting in a real fast.
I'm sorry. But it's my 2 cents for what it's worth.
We can code it slightly differently under health insurance so that we can break out what the cost is for the,
Yeah, I think that's only makes sense.
okay, happy to do that.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dana? I assume you're done your presentation. So you'll be seeing the budget again, the actual long form budget in January. And we'll need to take action on it in January.
You'll also have the tuition worksheets where we actually have the breakdown of the per pupil cost. At this point in time, we're using our best guesstimates, and I'd rather have better information before we present that for a final vote.
Any additional questions for Dana? All right. If not, I'd take a motion to accept I don't really accept it. This is more informational than it is. I don't think we should take action on this.
No.
So, my bad. I should have caught that and put it into the informational. So, does anyone have any concerns about where we're going, where Dana's going with this budget at this point? Now it's time to throw that out there. I know you don't have the long form to look at where every allocation is, but, in general, are we, no one has any objection, we'll move on, but if someone wants to air that concern now, this is the time to do it. Okay. All right,
And what I'll try to do next time, Jason, is give the full breakdown. We changed the way we did our reporting, that's why there are no numbers on there. And we should be able to fill those in. So you have a summary as well as a long form for the next one.
Okay, so we're not gonna take action on that. At this point, I'd take a motion to go into executive session for personnel.
So moved.
Then moved and seconded. All right. If I can have just the board members, we'll keep this to a 5-minute. Out of executive session. Next item on our agenda tonight is the superintendent's contract. Do we have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to move that we authorize the chair to sign a 1-year superintendent/director contract ending June 2020.
Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. Are there any abstentions? Okay. Motion is carried. From this point forward, we'll remove the interim position, as we'll be offering a non-interim position shortly.
Should we specify that we're offering that to Dana? We didn't say who we were offering.
We probably should.
Yeah, okay. Dana Peterson? The recipient of that, of said authorized chair's signature.
Very good point. Now we gotta revote that. Yeah.
Those are Robert's rules.
Yeah, so it's an amendment, so there's an amendment to the motion, or considered a friendly amendment.
Yeah.
We need to revote that. Any further discussion around that issue? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. Okay, motion is carried. I apologize for rushing the discussion on that, but make my last meeting, make me look like a jerk in my last meeting. That's right. The next item is to take action on a letter from our attorney. So this is board policy.
You want to read the letter?
If you would read the letter.
So this was addressed to me from Chris Leopold, our attorney. It says, "This letter is to inform you that effective December 31st, 2018, I'll be leaving the Wright Jones to begin practicing with the firm of McNeil, Leddy & Sheehan. As you are aware, I had primary responsibilities for the Hannaford Career Center School District files listed in the letter, and will be continuing my practice focused on representing Vermont school districts, and would like to continue representing your district. If you'd like to transfer these files to me at McNeil, Leddy & Sheehan, please sign the second page of this letter and return it to us. I'll take the files with me in January, and we'll be in a position to continue to provide legal services to you without delay. Your approval of the transfer will mean that your files will be transitioned to McNeil, Leddy & Sheehan, and Wright Jones will not retain any copies of those or contents of those files. If you do not like to have your files transferred to McNeil, Leddy & Sheehan, you may request to have your files delivered to you or destroyed. If we do not hear from you, your files will be closed and retained by Wright Jones for a reasonable period of time before they are destroyed. As you know, you may seek legal advice from an attorney of your choice at any time."
All right, so the question at hand is really, are we continuing with our current attorney in his new firm? So I think that's, we wanted to present the letter to the board, let the board make that decision. How long has Chris Leopold been our attorney?
Oh, I don't know that answer.
All right.
Quite a while.
Chris has been an attorney for a while, and before him it was Cameron.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what's the board's pleasure? We have a motion either way?
I would move we continue with it.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on this matter? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of continuing our relationship with our current attorney, Chris Leopold, in his new firm, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. Okay, the motion is carried. Next item, it reads, approve Addison County Workforce Development Task Force as Workforce Investment Board. So this is a bylaws thing. It's not a change to the bylaws. It's more of a clarification that's set forth in the bylaws that we should take, in my opinion, take formal action on. For a while, there hasn't been an entity working as workforce investment. I believe at the Workforce Investment Board, I believe years past that we've used economic development, the Addison County Economic Development Board, or subcommittee of that, to vet workforce investment board members. The bylaws read, so Article 3, which is board membership, Section 1, composition of board. The board shall consist of 11 voting members to be determined as follows. Item C, 4 members shall be appointed by the board from nominations submitted by the Workforce Investment Board, hereinafter known as the WIB. If the WIB should no longer exist, nominations would be made from another organization or organizations representing the workforce concerns of the region served by the district. So recently, this past year, Addison County Economic Development has formalized a workforce investment board that they're calling the Addison County Workforce Development Task Force. I would like the board to acknowledge them as the other organization representing the workforce concerns of the region. What this would mean is that subcommittee of that board would be making nominations to fill the workforce investment board positions as they are vacated here. I've met with Fred Kinney, the executive director of Addison County Economic Development, and he is amenable to that and looks forward to filling that role if we so choose. So, any questions? If not, would anyone like to move that?
Sure.
Okay, you don't seem real sure about that.
No, I think that it makes, you talked to me about it before, I think it makes perfect sense.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, so just so we're clear, what that means is when I exit the board and, at the end of this term, they'll be making that nomination to the board. The board will then take action on that, so you can accept or reject that nomination. So, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay. Okay, motion is carried. Thank you. Once again, that's just a bookkeeping thing. It's not a change to the bylaws. It's just a clarification. So, moves us to our informational agenda. Presentation, IB candidacy application phase. So.
Going around. This is a little light reading. Last month, we outlined what the CP is on paper. This time around, I'd like to give you a little recap of that again. I just want one so I can follow along. Yep. Somebody's got to follow along. Start with a recap of that. Then get into what the CP looks like here, how students access it, and the process for approval. Here's that outline that I just revised. So again, CP is 3 parts: the CP core, the IB courses, and the career-related study. This is in greater detail inside your first page, page 2 and 3. Okay. We had our IB tree, right? Yeah, colors, nice. We're going to look closer at the top, where we compare the CP core to the DP core. Equivalent, but not the same. The CP has the language development component that the DP core does not have, because DP candidates have to have a language course on their own. Okay. If we look at the other side of the tree, the CP candidates have to take 2 to 4 IB related courses. That's the standard level or higher level course, where the DP candidates take 6 in each of the course subject areas. Good so far? Again, the details are in the first 2 pages, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Where CP starts to really differentiate itself is with the career-related study. That's us, the Hannaford Career Center, Career and Tech Ed, right? DP doesn't have a specific career focus to it, and it's got really limited, limited scheduling flexibility, where the CP career-related program has a little more flexibility in its schedule, and there's that specific career-related focus. Okay? Covered all this last time, just resetting the table. Our CP philosophy, the whole IB world, comes from the 10 learner attributes, and it approaches to teaching and approaches to learning philosophy, etc. So, boom. We are looking at moving forward with a CP2 model. Career-related program 2 only means that we are an independent IB world school. We don't attach ourselves with a diploma program school or a DP school. We don't have an MYP, a middle years program, within your jurisdiction, right? This is a new thing from 2014 that IB piloted. 2016 they came out with it again. Actually, excuse me, started in 2004. Last year there were around 100 CP schools. They're expecting next year that number to be over 200 because the interest is just going through the roof, right? So here at the Career Center, what that looks like. Our career-related studies are our 2-year career and tech ed programs, the current programs of study, almost all of which can get plugged in right now. They meet all the accreditation requirements that IB lays out for a CRS. The ones that don't have very small things that they need to accommodate. The CP core, the personal professional skills, language development, service learning, reflective project, that would be a new class taught here. Pieces of those components, those each have minimum hour requirements. For example, PPS is a 90-hour requirement. That would be a big chunk of the core. The other three components of it, we would find embedded in some way, shape, or form in the CRS class. That makes that core super authentic because we're learning about, we're experiencing service learning through our career-related study. We're executing our reflective project through our career-related study. Okay, it's not just a TAC add-on, it's a thing that enriches the 2-year program. And IB courses, we would offer a minimum of 2. Also accessing IB online. They have a third-party partner that delivers the entire IB catalog of diploma program IB courses online. Why CP2 over CP1? We get a lot of flexibility. We get to open the doors to every student who already has an open door access to the Career Center. It's not just a third of our county population. Okay. This, again, I said at the end of last meeting, the career-related program going this route with a corner of our curriculum kind of robot proofs our future students. The things that IB makes and does and asks our students and our faculty to do are things that AI hasn't figured out how to do and isn't on the horizon of figuring out how to do. Automation can't do it, right? Even if our programs, by and large, are training students to be exemplary widget makers, in the IB widget maker world, they're not replaced by automation because they're thinking on their feet about the processes of making the widget. Okay? It's a thing that is open for every single student that walks through the door by the Career Center being a CP2. Couple example access points, right? Let's say we have an MUHS junior. They're interested in computer science principles. They had a coding class as a 9th grader. They're interested in computer science principles. They come take the 2-year computer science program, right? Hey, I'm standing here. I'm going to push my program first.
Well played.
That's what I get, right? So the CRS is easy. To support that computer science study, we need English. HL means it happens over 2 years. That happens here, right? There's no transfer of the bus back and forth, back and forth. It all happens right here. The standard level course would be math, computer science, algorithms, math, it plugs right in, okay? And the CP core also happens here. Super easy for that student now to really get a bigger edge on their colleagues, regionally, nationally, internationally. Let's take a Virgin student who just kind of wants to experience CP, but not do the whole certificate program. They can come take theater, take the performance class in theater as a senior. They can also meet their Virgin's English literacy requirement through the standard level course. And they also, a big component of the theater class is their portfolio, resume building, etc. Those are the things that we often do already, but through CP Core, it's elevated. Now we're turning our learning into a reflective project. We're turning it into some French language acquisition because we want to go perform Shakespeare in Louisiana. I don't know. I mean, the dice rolls out and it gives the students options, right? Does this make, are we following along? Cool, great. So MUHS student, we're attached, not through policy, but that student would have access, the MUHS student would have access to the MUHS DP catalog. So now that really becomes flexible. They can be a CP candidate here, take our CRS course in sustainable agriculture. Maybe they want to go and change wastewater, not wastewater, irrigation water policy, right? They have big aspirations to change state, local government, whatever. They take the CRS here at MUHS. They take a one-year course in individuals and societies, so they can pitch to lawmakers. They take one-year course in business entrepreneurship because currently in Vermont, there's a need for that. They want to stay here. We've heard it. If you want a job in Vermont, you have to create the job in Vermont, right? Bang, there it is. Okay. The IB courses in a CP2, we've heard and read IB for all in the paper. It's not like that under a CP2 model. The career-related studies, the programs of study that we have, we can choose to engage or not engage with the career program certification, okay? So that means we can do this and all we need is one program. Maybe it's computer science to get it started. Then as natural resource management sees, ooh, that looks kind of cool, and I've always wanted to excite those biology students from around the county to kind of come and have a more rigorous application of their learning. Maybe now forestry, land resources management, maybe they're a CRS too. Okay, so we can add and subtract those CRS programs, our programs of study that we currently have, as interest shows. And the kicker that makes it really, really flexible is the online access to the IB catalog. They got everything. It's pretty sweet. Questions?
So, Jake, under your flexible pathways, say for the Mount student,
Which one would you like to look at?
the CP certificate candidate, that one there.
Yep.
So would that mean then that that student, to get those courses in, would be here all day, all year?
On the drafting table, it's flexible. I'm about to get into the process of how we get there, but
Maybe
your question is great. It
maybe I just pushed
looks
too quick.
like a full course, and it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. With some of our transportation timelines around the county to come and to go to and fro, it gets a little tighter, but it doesn't mean that student comes at 8 o'clock and leaves at 3 and they spent, a Starksboro resident spent the entire day here. It doesn't necessarily mean that.
Jake?
Yep.
those courses for IB, higher level English and
Yeah,
math, they would be provided here,
yes, that's what our model would provide.
and they're going to be fairly easy to create.
Yes. Yeah. The same level of intensity as creating another program of study. We currently already have an English teacher on staff as an English coach, and we have a math instructor on staff as a math coach. So the staffing for this doesn't impact anything that we've talked about, you know, the budget conversation from earlier. It's pretty nice.
Okay.
English specifically in all 4 of our schools, or 3 of our schools, there's a 4-year requirement of English, 8 semesters as we get into PBGR. It used to be 4 credits. So English is one that, you know, if we're going to take, to your question, if we're going to take a student's full day or most of the day, we need to at least still be able to offer them the pathway to graduate by providing a rigorous English experience.
Jake?
We're going to go to Allison first.
So to continue that thought, does this mean that the Middlebury student does come here full day?
It could.
Okay.
It could.
But they also have access to their own IB programs at Middlebury. Because as Jake says, it's a possibility, but they already offer a program. It doesn't say where you have to get your IB courses. So that's something in terms of your partnerships, when you're partnering with an IB school, and I think Jake referenced that on a previous slide, where they get their courses to be able to complete the CP endorsement doesn't matter. We're just offering that for students so that they could come from any place, whether they have the IB options at their home school or not. So, and there are some, as Jake has alluded to on a couple of his slides, there are some opportunities that might not exist at other places. Sorry, Jake.
No, it's great.
Back to you.
So I have a picture in my head of what this is, and I don't think it's not matching with what I'm hearing from you. So I heard that some of the IB, the math and English, can be embedded in the programs of study. Is that
No.
not? No.
So
So they have to be completely separate. And same with the CP core has to be completely separate. So they're different classes, but you can tailor those classes so they dovetail with the field of study. Is that?
yeah, whoops, that was it. Components of the core would be found interwoven into the 2-year program.
Into the course of study.
The components of, the IB course, it's a course. It's a thing that stands by itself.
So so as a student, regardless of which high school I come from, when I come here, I get the opportunity to decide which path, if I'm gonna do the IB CP, or if I'm just gonna do what we have historically done here.
Yep.
Okay.
It's through this umbrella hat of IB, but I've sat in the back and we've had the conversation for years. Students lose their Career Center opportunity in the class that they really want to be in because they have to go back to their home school to take an English credit to graduate. Don't have to. No,
Don't get me wrong, I think this is great, and whether
we don't have to
this
do
is-
that. We don't have to do that anymore.
Whether this is
With
sold
the right
in-house
planning
or-
and the right alignment, the IB SL English meets the literacy PBGR or Carnegie credit for whatever school. In the same way that right now, a computer science student earns a math credit.
So,
My picture in my head matches what you're telling me now.
Okay.
Thanks. I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
so I guess what I'm thinking now is, we're looking at next year's budget.
Mhm.
We've got some professional development money in there,
Mhm.
and we have some at some point, if more folks, more students are coming in here and taking that not embedded, but that separate course for English and math, that might drive budgetary measures up in order to fulfill the needs of the classes. In other words, professionals that are going to teach that class.
Yes, but it also drives up the full building FTE.
No, I get it.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
want to
Yep.
make sure that, there'll be a financial impact if we're successful at this, but it should be a positive financial impact
Right.
that benefits the opportunity for students and also, helps with, our FTE numbers.
If it gets to that point,
Right.
which would be amazing. Right now, the model that we've hashed out over lunch is we already have that English teacher here. We're already paying that English professional. We're already paying the math professional. The math professional is also already familiar with online teaching. So those are some really cool keys that we already have in the locks, and we just need to turn. It's a 3-year implementation. We're all the way over there on the left in consideration phase. At some point in 2019, we'll be submitting our request for candidacy to IB. At that point, we have a greater than a year kind of candidate phase process outlined there, and the whole thing culminates with a second application for authorization to IB. Here's the same information in bullets, because I am an engineer and I write bullets. I think it's a little bit easier to digest and more clear here. It's also in your printout. Okay. Under this idea, the first cohort who could be earning their CP certificate is the 2023 group. It's pretty excited. I just said this. That's also in your printout. So to get there, in addition to the 2 applications and figuring out alignment with our sending schools, figuring out schedule on a daily basis, there are some trainings that need to take place. Some of these have already taken place. Our CP coordinator training was just completed. Over on the left, it can't be understated that the sooner we sign up and complete these, the more likely that our partnership grant with ACSD for flexible pathways will cover the cost of that. Okay. Yeah. So we need our head of school training. We've got to finish the application, which involves completing our feasibility study. We need those volunteer CRSs. You've heard of one mentioned here a couple times.
Can't imagine who that would be.
We need to bring the information and the torch to Mount Abe and to Virgins, because it's a powerful thing that really has a lot of potential to pull a lot of students along. And at this point, we haven't been in that place yet, right? And the PBGR and the credit alignment is a big thing too, so that those students who don't want to pursue the full CP certificate don't have to, but it makes their day a little easier. They can stay in class and get their English credit to graduate. They can stay in class and get an entrepreneurial check also, and that satisfies math, right? Like, it's that PBGR, that credit game on the transcript. This is the thing that really makes us flexible. With some real authentic authorization behind it. I was supposed to do this at the beginning, but Caitlin Steele and Bill Austin are here from ACSD to say hi.
And we're here to say officially, we really do, our names are on there. We are highly supportive of this, and not just by word.
Jake's doing,
Even after you've worked with Jake?
Jake's doing a great job.
So we had some questions as we went. Here's a motivational quote from the Director General of IB.
So first of all, I want to thank you. I think it's a great presentation. My question to you is on a 1 to 10, center-wide with faculty, where are they in relation to your enthusiasm to this? I know it'll be a little less because, well, you're going to be the first class.
Can I give you a window?
Window, yeah. It's that,
1 to 10.
Sure. So, look, the reality is there is some skepticism. There's, most frequently though, that skepticism is a correlation of a lack of awareness around what the program actually looks like. You all, in some cases, are now more informed of what a CP looks like and how it could work and feeling what it could bring to a student than some of our faculty, just because they haven't been at the faculty meeting where I gave a similar presentation, right? So we're kind of down near the bottom. The second somebody puts their brain in the literature or experiences a training, I'm not going to speak for Wendy, but I think that she was there and then she went to the training and she came back and she's there. Like, there's a switch that kind of happens and you feel it, you see it, and it clicks. And this program-free world, you're gonna be the thing that the computer tells you to do, or you're gonna tell the computer what to do. That's the 21st century, and this is one thing that helps our students, every single one of them in the whole county, be the user, not the program. That's not answering your question, but I'm running for office, so.
Close enough, I'll take it.
Can I add?
Yeah,
Just, so also, I could not find one other CTE school that was doing the CP2 model. I asked, and we had people from all around the world actually at the training. Yet, the numbers are predicted to triple in the next 2 years for CP candidates. So it does kind of feel like we're on the cutting edge of something fantastic here. So I just wanted to.
This makes the most sense for a CTE school, period, I think.
It lifts the tide across all components. Like, yeah, we already make resumes and cover letters, not like this. We already have career-related studies that are rigorous and have dual enrollment, but not like this.
So I know from the work that I do on the other school board, the IB candidates, depending on which programming they make it through the high school in, they get like a step up if they were to go into college. Would they get the same thing with the CP program?
So, employers, when surveyed, this survey was conducted between 2013 and 15. This is related to university, but you can cut university out and put employer in. And the summary quote from the executive pages of these research endeavors essentially say the same thing. So, there's a thing, we talked about it last time. Our employers want people who will show up on time, do their work, right, work hard, et cetera, et cetera. If something's broken, they don't want the employee to just hit it harder, right? We can't just hit things harder. We have to think about why it broke, so maybe we can fix it kind of world. And that's one of the IB lenses that comes. Very few very few mechanical tools on large scale are fabricated in the US. I'm thinking about Germany and the lathes that they crank out, right? So now an industrial machinist student has German language development in their CRS, and when the Haas goes down, they make the call to the German tech, not to the 1-800 tech, right? And they get to talk to the designer. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. If I'm an employer, am I gonna hire the employee that can speak to the lathe manufacturer, or the one that knows to push the red button when the sound it goes real screechy, right? Like, there's a distinguishable difference. Yeah.
What's the timeline to approach Monty Vincennes regarding this particular project? And are there representatives already reaching out to do that?
So we have been here first. The feeling of our first access point is through the counselors at the school. We could come in January if
Well, I think it's important.
that's, I mean.
Rest of the county.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I feel the eyebrow raise. I'm totally there. I'm
So
totally
you
there.
have, Mount Abe has a sort of similar program, but, again, where it fits with this, I don't know.
The Pathways program that you referenced last time. So I need to know a little bit, I need to do my homework on what Pathways is.
And I can't answer that because I'm not sure where it's at right now.
Sure.
Yes, you may not be able to either, but anyway.
I know that
But that's
this
a
has a
reaching out.
lot of third-party on-look, external assessment, things like that, really keep that validity elevated.
I'm really gonna say I like shiny things. And when you revamped your program with the STEM Academy, I was impressed with that. At the time, wow, be a high school student, yeah. I see this as a shiny thing as well. That is, I think a good thing for students. My question, however, is, so if I'm a Middlebury student, I can get a lot of the I can get the core stuff up the hallway.
You take your IB courses up the hallway.
So your
core would still be here.
So the core would still
currently.
So from a bean counter perspective, we're all looking at tight budgets. We're all looking at decreasing students. Has there been a conversation with ACSD about, as a Virgin student, being able to access Middlebury, the Middlebury curriculum while here at the Career Center to help augment and make the Career Center more accessible to them?
Internally, we've had that, I wonder.
Okay.
To my knowledge, it has stayed inside, and we haven't gone to talk about how that happens.
I know logistically,
et cetera, but it's a thing that is on the bulletin board. Yes.
All one could ask.
You look like you want to add.
Well, I couldn't hear everything that you said, but I did hear you ask whether CP candidates here could access their core program at the high school. And Jake answered correctly, but he didn't give sort of the backstory, which is really, I find very exciting. We entered this partnership through this AOE grant this year thinking that we would be hosting the CP at the high school and partnering with the Career Center for the CRS. And when Jake and I went to a training in Denver in September, the thing that blew my mind was I had no concept of the CP2 model. So that was a CP1 where we hosted. This CP2 model where you host it was new learning for me. And I will speak for us and tell me if I get it wrong.
You'll get it right.
I think we both came home strong advocates of the CP2 model because, one, the whole county can benefit from it, not just our kids. Two, it really expands our partnership and our collaborative effort. So now we're all in this learning community together. But three, by hosting the core here and building those core components of the CP here, that's what allows you to take the service learning and the language development and the reflective project and really embed those within your CRS so that it's a very holistic, whole student approach, as opposed to us building all of those pieces at the high school and just trying to make them connect with what kids are doing here. So no, students wouldn't access the CP core at the high school because it would explicitly be built here. And so the ownership then lives here. And that's a little bit hard for us because it requires relinquishing some control. But we've gotten there.
Yeah.
We've gotten there. And so now we're just really enthusiastic, supportive partners in that.
It's kind of cool. I mean, you read a newspaper article about students needing the trades, right? And career and tech ed needs to be, this centralizes the whole high school experience to the Hannaford Career Center.
It also provides an additional opportunity for us to collaborate with the Career Center and our teachers to collaborate with the Career Center, which we're all looking forward to.
We're on a very similar professional learning trajectory now, so there's a lot of room for collaboration on that front.
Excellent, I'm glad to hear that. Any questions for Dave?
Is it like one program at a time you implement this? Is the long-term goal that all the programs here fall under that model?
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, it could be one at a time. It's certainly the hope that as many programs want to adopt it.
Do it all at once kind of thing.
As program instructors retire, being a CP2 school certainly increases our exposure for those new hire replacements. There's a lot of kind of underlying benefit. I hope ultimately the actual course execution is somewhere in between.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jake. Excellent presentation. Thanks for your insight. Greatly appreciate it.
So, that's a good question. So is there any official board action that's needed to continue to move forward? We're getting presentations, but
So I'm going to
we're approving a budget?
I will field that question. So it's my understanding, and I'm fielding it because I kind of pushed him in this direction, and the new chair moving forward either buys my logic or revamps and does it a different way. That's, I looked at as a policy governance board, we don't play a big role in curriculum development. We have an obligation under statute to approve new programs. Well, this isn't a new program. This is a supplemental beefing up of a program. It's similar to, I don't want to use the term, dual enrollment credit, but I look at it kind of that way, as this is another avenue for our students to pursue that is an option to them. Just because Jake offers some dual enrollment credits doesn't mean that all his students are going to take that opportunity. This is going to be very similar to that. Ultimately, we can say we don't dictate curriculum, we don't do this. Ultimately, what we do control is the superintendent and the purse strings of how this money is being allocated.
So essentially,
we weren't going to. I wasn't going to have
budget. We're supporting the direction that the money in the budget is moving.
Any programming change, Jake referenced it in terms of the CP core. When we get to the point where we are actually developing that, we would come back to this board for approval, just like we would for any particular program. If we are going to offer an IB class in math, for example, we would come back to the board and say, we're making a recommendation as a result of fitting into this, and we believe that this is the right way to go. And then from the operational standpoint, I can work with the staff to put those pieces in place. If there are budget implications, we need to be transparent and tell you that the budget would need to be expanded by X number of dollars. And then we would ask for your approval, just like if we were going to, like last year when we approved Jake's offering of this computer science class. We came here first to ask for that approval because we can't go to the state without asking for that approval. So I believe that Jason has this right in terms of what is policy and in the sphere of the board, and what is operational under policy governance in the sphere of the superintendent. So it's not the last conversation that we would have in front of the board. To have a sense of the support of the board would be great, but I don't think that any official action is required.
When I'm kind of, based on the conversations and the presentations, I'm getting, I think both Jake and Dana have inferred that we're,
I know the superintendents get together at regional meetings, and you have the opportunity to meet with them one-on-one within this county. And to the point of keeping Virginia and Mount Abe up to speed, the superintendent's understanding about what's going on down here as well at this stage?
I try to keep the superintendents in the loop about all of our curricular and programming changes. So for example, that's what I've done with respect to our construction trades. Gotten some very positive feedback with respect to that. And we'll be coming back to this board in January to actually request support to move forward with the construction trades, because that's a program that's been on hiatus. We will come back to you to ask for us for permission to go to the state to reinstitute that program. That's the way that works. And but I've gotten a lot of good feedback from the superintendents that I've talked with, the correspondent around that, and all of the building administrators and counselors are ecstatic that we're bringing that program back, although we're looking to bring that program back. So the same thing with this. It would be premature to talk to them before talking to you about what we're exploring. Even though ACSD already knows because they were partners with us on the grant. Yes, no.
So I would like to say, as a board member, I'm extremely excited. And I'm jumping up and down with you because this is fantastic. It answers all of the concerns and questions that were at that Basin Harbor Workforce Summit. Everything. And then some. It's just amazing.
Great.
I'm excited. I can't wait. I'm actually kind of sad that it's a 3-year process. I mean, come on. But that also gives you time to work with all of the schools, to get your curriculum put together and get all of your T's crossed and your I's dotted. And I'm just super excited.
The opportunities for people to be involved, even though it doesn't exist yet, will help everybody to be better trained and have a better resume or a better transcript for applying to schools. So we don't look at it as this one end point that's down the road, but as a process for us to provide those opportunities to all of our students.
So once again, we appreciate the presentation, very well put together. I'm excited about this. We are behind schedule, so if we want to continue this conversation, I'm great with that. I want someone to say that they want to continue this conversation. So you guys here until 9 o'clock tonight.
I would just like to second Allison's enthusiasm about our presentation.
Facilities report. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Beckwith to give us the highlights. There's a copy of those meeting minutes in your packet.
So quick review, some of the projects that we've had in the works from summer until now are either in progress or coming to conclusion. The installation of the building tree ceiling is complete and has made a significant difference. The building electrical distribution system evaluation is underway.
The way in the report. After they come in, all of the
Let's see, we're going to revisit the auto scrubber replacement topic in our next meeting. The direct visual control server and controls, that's in progress.
Yep.
And then under new business, we talked about 2 items, project management procedure. So Dana and John and others in the office are implementing projects, which I'm really excited about, just to help ensure that all information and costs related to one project are captured in one folder and that's tracked well. And then the other is we're working on a 5-year facilities plan that's in John and Dana's court right now. We reviewed the items on the list and we're going to work on prioritizing those and doing some cost to those. Any questions?
I'd like to make a comment, having not sat on this committee this year, but reading the minutes, I find them to be very full minutes, and I get a real good flavor when we get these. So these out to the committee and minutes, and I know how you run that meeting, so
The chair of
those to you also.
The chair of that committee is on top of it, so good job. Superintendent's report, Dana, you talked about some of it. Are there other highlights you'd like to hit on for the camera?
Yeah, just a couple, I'll try to be really quick. You can read the AOE Virtual Reality Innovation Grant summary that I have in here, but what I would like to highlight, I have a picture there of one of our staff members engaging in that, and the action that you see in the picture is what people actually feel when they're involved. I would invite you to come in sometime. There is a station set up in Jake's room. Glenn has done it, Kelly's done it. You will really be inspired by what you see, and we're hoping to roll this out to some of the elementary, middle schools to work with them. We've got an ongoing dialogue with moms to see if we can capture some at-risk students so that they could feel better connected. But please read through that, and if you do want, and I would suggest that you try it out, if nothing more than the roller coaster, which is really not academically related, but it will give you a sense of balance. But you can also explore many different presentation modes and exploration modes. They're really,
Have you played Fortnite on it yet?
I did presentations, however. You can actually present in front of an audience, which was fun to get unruly if you're not on task. So.
You're more into the extraterrestrial one. Anyways, right?
And you do a variety of artwork and things like that. So, anyway, the Champlain Valley Superintendents Association joint meeting on PLP development, please look at that. It was great to be present and be invited to participate with ACSD. Unfortunately, the gentlemen on A weren't able to be there when they got rescheduled, but I know that they have some great work going on, so that was wonderful. Kate and I did a workshop on community engagement, and we'll be rolling some things out, and we've already made changes, some changes to our website to provide greater access to materials for budget development I already talked about, and that's it. Okay. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Dana on anything in his report that he hasn't presented on, or that he has presented on and that you have questions? All right. Hearing none, we will go to the Dean of Students report. There's a copy of that in your packet. Ms. Mills, turn it over to you.
All right, so not much to report this month, but I was pretty confident that Dana would more than make up with what I didn't write, so.
It's a good thing we have that new copy, right?
So anyway, seriously, we went through the second of our 3-prong visit routine with our setting schools. The 10th graders from Virgins were in our building today. We had 10th graders from Mount Abe in our building last week, and then next Wednesday, the 10th graders from Middlebury Union High School will be joining us to check our facility out, check out programs. And then I'm really excited, tomorrow night is the opening night of Eric St. John, our new ART instructor. There was a nice write-up in the Addison Independent last week on him. And if you have a few minutes, it would be great if you could come to one of the 3 shows. It would be Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. So it's going to be a quaint, rated PG show. And it's, I guess, a collection of vignettes. So the actors will be, in and out and shuffling roles. Kind of similar to the one acts, but it's a cohesive play. So that's all I have today. Yes?
One comment, in Addison Independent, I noticed there was a whole piece on student honors. And I don't believe that's ever occurred before. And I was so excited
Isn't that
to
nice?
see that.
Yes, we saw
great.
Kate LaRiviere, our literacy coach. She tried starting that last year. So yeah, it is, it's great. So our outstanding students were all highlighted in Thursday's edition of the, what was it? No, it was yesterday.
And they posted on Facebook too.
That's right. Yeah,
That was
it was
great.
on the Addison Independent, so, yeah. It was great. Yep, it is great.
Thank you.
I sure will. Thank you.
Kelly, can I put in another plug for Almost Maine? I was doing doing supervision with Eric, and I told him I probably couldn't stay for the entire 2 hours. It just would be too long. I'm used to doing an hour, maybe a little longer, 80 minutes. But so I'm in there, and I'm going through, and I'm getting some really great data for the feedback form. And all of a sudden, I realized I was paying more attention to what was happening in the scene than evaluating. So I knew that I had gotten caught, and it was time for me to transition because it was so engaging, even though it was highly student-centered, and they were the ones who were actually engaged in the learning and the feedback. So I have to say he's done an excellent job as an instructor here, and I would highly encourage you to come and see the performance because I think you'll be blown away. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions on the Stewardship program? All right. Next would be the adult ed report. I'll turn it over to Mr. Smith.
It's a thin report. It's been a slow time of year, but I'll draw attention, I guess, to the last bullet. The Vermont Department of Labor has an annual, it's been $19,684 for the last 4 years, grant that they provide to each tech center in the state for running adult education program. A couple of years ago, they pushed the deadline for that, or they pushed the application date for that from August to September, and then last year they pushed it from September to December. So they were basically funding us the same amount of money for 16 months of performance instead of 12 months of performance. The last year or so, we've seen really kind of positive language coming out of Department of Labor about Vermont adult tech ed and wanting to support that more. And we've seen that translate into the grant going up to an even 20,000. But they're also, the application this year is in December as it was last year, but they're telling us that next year's will be available in August. So they're reversing what they've done and are increasing the amount. So even though none of that is in that little bullet, I feel like support at the state level for adult technical education is really moving in that direction.
Excellent. So you can get to use the virtual reality stuff in your programs as well?
I could really easily see partnering on the app for welding. Absolutely, because we had, like for instance, we had the employer that I mentioned a couple of times that we're working with to offer TIG training to. He says, well, I've got guys at a couple of different levels, but I don't feel like I even have a baseline of what their skills are because he's getting the information from different supervisors, some of them are on first shift, some of them are on third shift, so they don't even have the same person evaluating their welding levels. And I think, God, if I could get them under the VR hood for 20 minutes to use a welding simulator, we would know what their level was. So I could see it.
When I was out at TR3 trip now, the annual meeting, 4 years ago, whatever it was, Ivy Tech, that community college had, I think, 5 or 6 virtual welding machines. Just fascinating by them. I had to kind of stick my hands in my pockets because I was trying to do this. Let's see how the shiny things. So I get it. Next, any questions for Len? Thank you very much. Next on our agenda, board reorganization. So we have a committee that was talking with different candidates about the chair position. Does that committee have a nomination or a slate of nominations?
We have a nomination. I'd like to put forth the name of Suzanne Buck to be our new chair. Unless there's anybody who can also nominate from the floor, that's always still an option. So
Are there any
that's our
other
nomination.
Are there any other nominations? All right. Hearing none, close nominations. Would you like to say anything, or we just move forward?
I think unless somebody wants to really press me for things in light of the lateness, I'll just abstain from saying anything.
Fair enough. So all those in favor of Suzanne Buck being our new board chair signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right. Congratulations. At this point, I will relinquish the meeting to Suzanne.
Okay, so our next item on the agenda is policy 4.1, governance style. Would anybody like to try a hand at how we've done today?
Yeah, I'm glad to do it. So it was obviously a very full agenda. We got a great presentation. We had an executive session squeezed in the middle, which kind of throw off the time, but these time things are there to be targets, and I think executive session was as brief as it probably could be. Good questions asked around IB. A lot of good manners around the table. There wasn't too many conversations going on. Maybe one down this end a little bit during the IB. I don't know who it was initiating it, but distracted me a few times. And then under governance style, I'd like to expand on that just a little bit and say thank you to Jason, because you've been leading this organization as board chair for a number of years now through some very challenging times. And not everybody's been here with him since the beginning, but to think that he could, when he first took over as chair, I figured it was going to be short-lived.
Me too.
But done a great job, and I think the fact that you've got some really good board members sitting around the table now really is one of those crisis situations that you had to address before we hired our superintendent, the present superintendent, and that's kudos to you and your due diligence. And some of you may or may not know, and now that we have the other chair, we can say this out loud, but there's just so much extra work that a chair puts in. You'll create some speed dials, I'm sure, and you'll deal with whatever situations arise during the course of the day, and having that flexibility outside of the meeting time has been really appreciated by me. I've been a board chair before, and and you can never tell what's going to happen, but I think you've done a great job, and thank you. Thank you for your time and your service.
It's been a joy.
Okay, so that brings us to our last piece, which is executive session for negotiations. So we can either go right into executive session, or if people need to take a couple-minute break, bathroom break.
Executive session sounds great. Get this done.
All right, so you got to make the motion to move into
Session for negotiating.
Huh? You're moving it? Okay.
I'll second it.
And we're into executive session.